Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. So today's part 2, following up from last week. If you didn't listen to the last episode, which was part 1 of cultivating pleasure even when you don't feel good, then I recommend to stop this episode and to go back and listen to part 1 first. So part 1 was really giving the context and some of the philosophy around pleasure to help us to expand our understanding of this very important field. And I also shared that me having a kind of this chronic illness for the past few months and really struggling with a lot of heavy symptoms, I've also continuously, every single day, every night when I'm doing my kind of visualizations and meditations at night, I've had this experience of being completely engulfed in pleasure and bliss almost spontaneously, it's just beautiful and it's amazing. Like I said before, because pleasure is, what we most desire to feel biologically and maybe on other levels as well, but also because it's so opening and so healing and so presencing, invigorating to feel that pleasure in our system. So that has been beautiful. And this question came on retreat and this question has come up in our Facebook group. So I want to answer it on a couple of different levels. But for me, it's something I want to speak to, that there is this special energy that we can open to that is very worth cultivating. And the reason the last episode was a lot about the philosophy and the theory about it is because having good philosophy and having good concepts and theories, it prepares us to integrate the experience. I was just having a chat with Kate yesterday about, when we're experiencing triggers, and so how do we resolve that? Once you've become aware that, oh wow, I've got a complex, or I've got a trigger, or I've got a fear or a worry or an anxiety or insecurity, and you kind of recognize it, and you might get some insight about it that, oh, this comes from my childhood or something like that. So once you get that feeling, then how do you actually integrate it or resolve it? Does that just happen automatically? And the answer to that, one of the ways that we integrate it is actually in any moment, to when that trigger comes up, to feel, what do I need to do here? Do I need to think about this more? Do I need to move my body? Do I need to journal? Do I need to speak to someone? So actually applying our healing tools is how we integrate it. But healing actually comes from 2 angles. One of them is this kind of bottom up, actually working with the trigger actively in real time and directly. And the other one is the psychoeducation piece. So having understanding and theory about how we work, this kind of developing of our conscious mind and its ability to step back and to hold a space for us, is how we heal and integrate those triggers that come up in the day-to-day. So in the same way with pleasure, and the same way with anything else that we speak about on this podcast, the theoretical components are a tool in and of itself that prepare the mind to integrate effortlessly this work. So now to get into some tools, the first tool for cultivating pleasure is gratitude. And gratitude is something that we practice both in the moment when we need it. So when we feel like, I need to reframe this, I am being pessimistic about my situation, I am consumed by fear and worry about a certain situation or by my experience, and I know I don't need to feel that. I need to reframe this. I need to celebrate my life. I need to feel grateful because I know there's so many parts of this experience that are absolutely my preference and my pleasure, and I feel so lucky to have them. I need to reframe and I need to focus on that. So gratitude is something that we practice in the moment. But gratitude is also a daily practice outside of challenging situations, having a gratitude journal, practicing gratitude meditations. There's some nice ones on the podcast. And then those informal moments of practicing gratitude. So basically pauses of appreciation, even if you're in an office building, even if you're at work, even if you're in a mundane situation, taking a pause to appreciate your life, this moment, your breath, the sunshine, your food, and not to mention all of the amazing moments in your life. These amazing moments of pleasure and connection and love and satisfaction that we have, to actually take pauses of appreciation. So the gratitude practice is so important for cultivating pleasure. So I'm talking about these techniques are things that I have cultivated to a high degree that meant that when I'm laying in bed like so toxic, so nauseous, and I put my hands on my belly and for a moment a rush of pleasure runs through me, I know that is because my system is very strongly tuned to pleasure, that it will actually spontaneously rush into me even when I feel like shit. So a gratitude practice is about tuning your nervous system, which is your mind, your body, your energy, all your organs, tuning to an experience of pleasure so that is something that becomes like a mode and a default of our system. The next strong tool that I've cultivated is the heart space. So again, the heart space is something we come home to in challenging situations. We place our hand on the heart when we're in meditation and we're processing sticky emotions, or we're feeling grief, or we're feeling anxiety, and you bring a palm to your heart. So we practice with the heart space and breathe through the heart to center us and to ground us in challenging situations. But also outside of that, to have a daily heart space practice. A 5-minute a day meditation practice is just a non-negotiable if you're someone who is interested in this podcast. It seems crazy to me that we could have no meditation practice, no pause practice, no digestion practice where we meet ourselves internally. So cultivating the heart space through any of the meditations on this podcast is something that is going to tune you to that deepest level of pleasure, the pleasure of your being. It's going to tune you more to that non-dual space, that space of stillness, that space of absence of content and form, our true nature, the deepest reset of our nervous system, the deepest reset of our whole being is through the heart space. So having cultivated that means that my system is got this direct line to being and to presence and to this deepest form of pleasure. And then the technique of smiling energy. So smiling energy is, or the inner smile technique is a technique from the Taoist tradition, and maybe you've heard of Mantak Chia's work, where you smile into organs and you feel the internal energy associated with smiling. So that kind of expansive freedom, joy, brightness of inner being that comes from smiling. So working with smiling energy can be done in a yoga practice, meditation practice, any spiritual practice. And this is what came on so strongly for me was, laying, super fatigued and all sick in bed and, taking a moment and putting my hands on my belly or on my chest and turning inward. And then this smile just beaming out from the center of my body into my cheeks. And I am familiar with that. I'm not like, oh, what's going on? Maybe something's wrong with me. I beam back at the smiling energy. I just let that flood my body. And I'm used to, there's a knowledge in my cells that this is so healing and presencing, and to surrender to that. And that's really that universal energy. It's something that exists around us. When we smile, we connect to this greater body of smiling energy that's ever present. It's just waiting to be connected to and to be experienced. Smiling exists. It's just about you and your personal vessel tuning in to become or receive or embody that smiling energy. So again, some kind of smiling practice. And actually, what I would love you to do is, if any of these 3 techniques kind of resonated with you, you felt attracted to, I would love you to take a 7-day practice starting today of 5 minutes a day of doing this practice. Gratitude, the heart, cultivating the heart space, or smiling energy. And there's a podcast about cultivating the heart space. There are many meditations for the heart space, for gratitude, and for smiling energy. So you've got resources to do this, or you could do all 3, but I recommend to take a 7-day practice. 7 days isn't that long. You can definitely do it, just 5 minutes a day. And don't just let this be theory. Also employ some practice. If 7 days feels like too much, then just do 1 day and see how that works for you. And then as a final kind of recommendation and practice for you, it would be for you to take a journal, and I would love for you to write down, it doesn't need to be a journal, it can be scrap paper, and I'd love for you to write down and make a nice big list, a nice big menu of what gives you pleasure. Is it movement to music? Is it some nice incense? Is it lighting a candle, having a bath? Is it cooking for yourself? Some people love grocery shopping, those crazy people. Is it going for a walk? Is it rubbing your pet's belly? Is it getting a massage? And your list will be filled with things that cost money and don't cost money, involve other people and don't involve other people, are just imagination based and mental based, and are physical based. And I want you to create that list. I want you to connect to the cultivating pleasure practice just by, making the list of it, just bringing more awareness to it, and then seeing what goes from there. Do you want to start to incorporate these? Do any of these fit in with the smiling energy practice or the gratitude practice? Cultivating pleasure means feeling pleasure and cultivating activities that feel pleasure and celebrating life and feeling gratitude and being connected to your heart and smiling more. It's actually simple. We need to kind of strip it back and just be this experience that we want to experience more. And this is, of course, in the domain of cultivating pleasure. There's also the whole domain about holding more discernment and more space and more objectivity around the things that don't feel good as well, which, as I said in the first episode, the first part is that that's not the topic of this podcast. So I hope you have enjoyed these tips. Like I mentioned last week, please listen, put the podcast down and then come back to it and listen again, get more out of it. These are free trainings that easily I could put into, a cultivating pleasure course and charge money for it. So I have free offerings for this reason, for you to really have this diverse array of teachings, and you can come back to as much as you want. And I would love for you to go into the Facebook group and to comment on the thread. What are some of the practices that you are going to try? Are you going to try the gratitude, the heart space, the smiling energy? And to connect with me there and to share with our community how you're going to actually take hold of your experience and make some moves in this direction of cultivating more pleasure in your life. It is so powerful to cultivate pleasure, and it's so powerful to experience the benefits of having cultivated pleasure so that it can spontaneously rush into your experience even when you don't feel good. Thank you for tuning in to the Functional Spirituality Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you subscribe by pressing the plus button on iTunes or the following button on Spotify. This is going to ensure that this resource is available and top of mind when you most need it. So please subscribe now.